And welcome to this morning's session of the Science, Innovation and Technology Select Committee. And I'm very excited by our guests this morning for our Innovation Showcase. And I'm now will hand over to Emily Darlington, MP, whose showcase this is, to introduce her guests. Emily.
I'm very happy to bring to the committee and to all those watching the committee the story of Starship Technologies. It's a UK success story. It's also a Milton Keynes success story, and how it fits in very well with today's theme of regional, how local authorities can work with companies to create innovation right across the UK. And for us, they're now everywhere, and they're well loved within the Milton Keynes ecosystem. So I'll hand over to Lisa, who is the Vice President, Public Affairs and Corporate Communications at Starship, based in Milton Keynes.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity to come and speak to you, and for me to bring our robot friend here to come and see you as well. So, I know some members of the committee are already familiar with Starship, but not everybody is. So I'll give you a little bit of background, sort of how we came into being, what we do, and how we work in Milton Keynes and across the globe to deliver our stories. Now, you can see they're the world leader in autonomous robot delivery from Mars to Milton Keynes. That's how we started out. People say, why are you called Starship? So our founders are Ati Heinle and Janus Fries, and they were two of the co-founders who founded Skype. When they'd finished with Skype, Ati was kind of like, well, what shall I do next? I know, I'll enter a NASA competition to invent a robot to go to Mars and collect space rocks, as one naturally would do, of course. And they didn't win that competition, but actually they looked at the prototype that Ati had built, and they thought, well, there's got to be some other application for this. They looked at the logistics sector, and in that saw an industry that still hadn't had its sort of technological revolution, and they really saw an application for what the Starship robot could do. And so Starship was born. And you can see there's a little path on the video of our robot starting to wend its way through lovely Milton Keynes. And rapidly it turns into quite a few more robots wending their way through lovely Milton Keynes. We started out in Milton Keynes in 2018. We actually founded in London, two guys, a whiteboard and an idea in a room with their little robot. But it did take a lot of local authority cooperation, because we'll come on to regulation later. But it's taken authorities to be bold and to push the boundaries a little bit, to introduce technology into their communities. And because of that, actually where we started out in Milton Keynes with our very first commercial deliveries with the Co-op supermarket, we're now in 200 locations globally. We've driven over 9 million miles across numerous countries, completing more than 7 million deliveries. We make a crossing every three crossings every second that we're in operation. So that sort of shows you the global scale of something that started out making a few deliveries in Milton Keynes, where it's blossomed to from there. We also operate in a number of other UK locations, say Greater Manchester, West Yorkshire, Northamptonshire, Cambridgeshire and Bedford too. And the reason we do that is on demand is in demand. I think we all know that people have really just become accustomed to getting even small amounts of goods delivered to them quite quickly. And that presents an ethical and sustainability issue about how we can do that as an economy and a society. It also creates a problem for business, because when people want small amounts of things, relatively small baskets, the robot here can take up to about 3 bags of shopping and deliver it to you. How do you do that and ensure that everybody in the supply chain benefits? That includes the actual suppliers themselves, the delivery riders and their wages, the people who actually make the goods. How do you ensure that everybody benefits? And last mile is notoriously the most carbon intensive and expensive of the entire supply chain. So getting it right. I think, as somebody said, they are loved. The robots are loved, and part of that is the approach that we've taken to how we do this. The autonomy level really matters, and it matters because how the robots behave around people is dictated by the level of autonomy. When our robots started out in Milton Keynes in their test phase, they were followed by people driving them with remote controls, because, as with any sort of AI, the robot has got to learn the world around it. It didn't just come into being and in year one understand what a road crossing was, or a guide dog, or a wheelchair. It's taken a long time to teach our robots what the world is. So we're 10 years old, and we only started making deliveries in 2018, and it's a curve. You start off with a few deliveries, but as soon as you get the autonomy right, you really get going. We're at level 4 autonomy, which means we're 99% autonomous. We do have remote assistance backup in case the robot encounters a novel situation, but by and large the robots are operating autonomously most of the time. And because of that, the cost per delivery is lower, which is attractive to retailers because you're not having a lot of human intervention to help the robot do its job. And as I've already touched on, the autonomy helps the social acceptance too. But the engagement and the accessibility work that goes alongside this is incredibly important because you can't just turn up to an area and go, hey guys, you're having robots now, get used to it. Particularly, and we forget in Milton Keynes sometimes that actually when you go to new areas, people haven't seen the robots before. They've gone from novelty to normal in Milton Keynes over the space of time that we've been there in the way that people just accept them and rely on them as part of an everyday life and an everyday service. But we work really hard on that. So it's about engaging with the council. We never operate anywhere where the council doesn't want us. We engage with local accessibility groups. We've got an accessibility advisory panel. So all that work we did in Milton Keynes in the beginning forms part of our engineering and autonomous driving pipeline to teach the robots how to behave more sensitively. The accessibility advisory panel, for example, of people who have low vision, are blind, are in wheelchairs, has helped us to change that robot behaviour and develop our autonomy. So it all goes hand in hand. But importantly, we've had to have that buy-in and boldness from local authorities because we do exist in a regulatory grey area. Our robots operate primarily on pavements. We cross roads, but as you can see, this little guy wouldn't fare too well on the M62, for example, during rush hour. So we've had to work really hard to socially integrate, but also to get permission and buy-in from local authorities who, let's be honest, Milton Keynes did take a little bit of a risk when this first started out. No one had let these robots operate commercially in their cities before. And actually, Milton Keynes wasn't a city at the time. When Milton Keynes did bid to be a city, the robot delivered the bid for them. We like to think we played a little part in that history. I've touched on the benefits, so I won't dwell on it too much. I think we're all familiar. Like, it drives sales because people like robot delivery. And it does also sing. It's not going to sing today, unfortunately, because the Wi-Fi is not quite good enough. But it can sing when it delivers to you, which is quite nice. But increased productivity too, because it frees people up to do more productive work and more profitable work for people too, and serving that growing market. We've actually had independent surveys around our societal acceptance, social acceptance. Councils were like, okay, we're going to let you do this, but we're going to check the residents don't hate it during the trial period. And overwhelmingly the response has been, so between 75 and 93% people responding to a council survey, and these council surveys, no one's ever nice to the council, are they? Of residents, not just customers, saying that they like the service and they want it to stay. On top of that, a third of our customers say they have a disability or live with someone who does. So we're not just working hard to operate well around people with disabilities, we're actually serving a need in the community too. We also really firmly believe that tech is for everyone. And so we are across all of Milton Keynes now. We operate in all types of communities. This is not just tech that is for the privileged few. We want to make sure that everybody has access to it. And using things like our Starship Schools programme, you'd be amazed, or perhaps not, that it's much easier to get kids interested in STEM if you take a singing robot into school and let them drive it about a bit. It works really well. But also for the environment, our robots are zero emission. They've got wireless charging stations so they can plug themselves in and charge themselves up when they get tired. So we estimate, if you compared it with traditional combustion engines, we'd have removed around 350,000 kilograms of carbon from the atmosphere by replacing car trips, because the vast majority of what we do, our customers tell us, replace car journeys and take cars off the roads. You can see there our little timeline. That's our journey. From starting out in Milton Keynes, people in Northampton saw it and said to Milton Keynes, how do we get robots? Can we have some robots? The good people of Milton Keynes then basically turned into ambassadors for Starship, I think. So we've got people in Milton Keynes Council who are probably more expert on robot behaviour than I am at this point. And they also went out and spoke to people in Camborne, in Bedford, in Leeds, to try and help de-risk it, to say to people, it's okay if you want to do this. People will like it, give it a go. And that's helped us to really grow. But as you can see, we didn't launch much in 2024. And there's a reason for that. The UK has fallen behind in this part of regulation because the Autonomous Vehicles Act was very progressive and very good, but it didn't get our little robots. We're currently seeing in the Devolved white paper, the Devolved Powers white paper, that micromobility is about to get its turn in the spotlight, but robots aren't really included in that. And if you speak to officials at the Department for Transport, as local authorities tend to do, they kind of say, hey guys, is it okay if we do robots? The response is, well, yeah, maybe, it's a bit of a grey area, but the robots could be classed as a carriage under the 1835 Highways Act. Now, a little guy here, with all the will in the world, I don't think the good folk who were drafting the 1835 Highways Act necessarily had in mind a little robot that's going to operate and deliver people shopping autonomously in 2025. I could be wrong, but I don't think that was necessarily the intention. So that's why there's fewer robots at the moment than there might be. Because if you look at somewhere like Finland, they did a little trial, much like Milton Keynes did, but in Finland they took the trial from local authority level and immediately regulated nationally to create a national framework. So we now partner with the largest retailer in Finland. We deliver as far north as Lapland. So the robots have had to learn a lot about snow. Because as you can imagine, just a side point on the autonomy, if robots learn the world, then all of a sudden the world changes because it's completely covered in snow. They've got a whole new set of things that they have to learn. So that was our learning last year in the Finnish winter. The support for this, the support for that sort of regulation, again, I won't dwell on this one, but in areas where people are familiar with the robots, as you can imagine, people like the robots, and there's support for government regulation of this to ensure more people have benefit to it. So finally, where next? Well, progressive regulation. This comes at a very apt time, given that the AI Opportunities Action Plan was published yesterday, which we really welcome. But actually, as much focus as there is on generative AI and the benefits and potential economic benefits for the UK from generative, our call would be to say, please don't forget embodied AI. We're taking AI, we're putting it into hardware, we're going out into the world, and in some ways that's much more difficult than something that exists online. So don't forget about embodied AI. Cross-government departmental action is needed. It will be very welcome. It could be in the form of a national framework or devolved powers. We firmly believe local authorities are well placed to understand what works in their communities and to enable that, much as Milton Keynes and other local authorities have done. And maybe it fits in the micro-mobility space with the regulation that is looking to be passed around and e-scooters. But the one thing we would say, that we're celebrating the innovation here, and we're so proud of the start that we made in 2018. It was a springboard that launched Starship and allowed us to go on to great things. But we want to stay here and do more here. So it is becoming more urgent as more countries develop this regulation and the UK doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Emily, and for introducing Starship Robot, and thank you, Lisa, for that fantastic presentation. And I think I'm right in saying that this is maybe the first time that Select Committee has had this Select Committee has had a robot for a witness. For the benefit of Hansard, the robot was communicating with us with various lights. I'm not sure exactly what they meant, but they were flashing, etc. And it certainly is a huge testament to the innovation that's taking place in Milton Keynes, and the committee has really heard your key messages on regulation and embodied AI. So thank you so much, and thank you also to the clerks of the committee for enabling the robot to be with us today. Thank you. Order.